Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com, and this is episode 30 of Photo Critiques. And in Photo Critiques, people send me in some of their best work, and I critique each image with suggestions on how they can improve it. And today, I'm critiquing the work of Roosa Mäkelä. I hope I pronounced her name close. Roosa is from Salo, Finland, and she's 17 and just learning photography. And she's wants some tips on trying to improve, and we'll see if we could help her. Okay, the first shot is obviously an abstract shot. This is typically done with a laser light, sometimes use a pen light, something like that. And you just use a very long exposure, and in this case it was 2.5 seconds. And you'd wave the light around and it gets exposed, but you don't, because the picture's very, in a very dark area. It's hard to critique an abstract shot because it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, but I could just offer a couple suggestions. Usually in any shot, you don't want the brighter part of the scenes on the outside of the frame. So you want the outside of the frame darker than something in the middle of the frame. So if you could eliminate this bright part up here, that would probably improve the shot. Also, usually when you do something like this, you'd have like a little laser light on the end of a string, and you'd spin it around where it's kind of got a real geometric shape to it. And you'd spin it and move it down or through the frame, whereas this is kind of just like a hodgepodge, which is fine. It's just an opinion that or just a suggestion on how you might want to try something in the future. This shot here is got a couple issues. We have this blown out part here, which you usually don't want anything blown out, where there's no detail at all, so it's so white. If you open the histogram and I go right here and I hover over this right triangle in Lightroom, that will show me the parts that are blown out, and it's showing this pretty big substantial areas are blown out. Conversely, if you hover over the left hand triangle, that will show you the parts that are just ink black, absolute black, and you see a little bit over here. Generally, it's okay in a photograph to have something, a little bits of it ink black. That's okay, but you really don't want anything blown out. So we have these blown out areas. Also, the image compositionally is lopsided. We have stuff over here, a cut off tree and some dark area of the shoreline over here, but then it's more wide open over here. The clouds are to the right. It's just not really balanced well. This is another one where I always say work the scene. Take multiple shots from different angles. Try not to have stray branches coming into the frame if possible. That's kind of distracting. So, work the scene, see if you could get a different angle where you could get these clouds more balanced in the sky, and go from there. This next shot's very interesting. This is a common shot, actually. If you're taking classes of photography, they always want you to do some focus shots like this, and this was very well done, actually. The feather is in perfect focus, absolutely perfect focus, and you have very narrow range of focus, and that was just f8 was probably perfect. It just allowed the entire feather to be in focus and everything on either side of it to just drop into blurriness. So that's just a nice composition. This shot here, I looked at it and it's got, there's nothing really that's in perfect focus. It looks like it might have been shot through glass. I'm not really sure. There's some odd kind of reflection here that I'm not really sure of. I'm not really, I could tell it's some type of train on a train track, but I don't know if it's made out of candy or if it's made out of what it's made out of. I really can't even tell. It's not, I would say it's, again, maybe a different compositional angle, something like that, to try to get the shot, to get rid of this like reflection right here. I probably have no clue what it is, but it's just distracting too. This is probably one of my favorite shots, and this is actually another common shot that if you're in taking classes in photography, they want you to do stuff like this, and it's very interesting. We have a natural frame of this this immediate pair of legs right here, and it goes off into the other legs and the various shoes and that people are wearing. Generally on this shot, now I say generally because there's no fast rules, but generally you want to focus on this. So you want the first like framing aspect to be blurry. The second one you want in perfect focus, and subsequent ones after it to be blurry. Now this would be a common thing if you're doing these shots with mirrors and things where you're having repeating subjects going off, receding into the distance. You generally want the second one to be in perfect focus, whereas it looks like the focus was pulled to over here. So to redo the shot, if you ever did, I know it probably was difficult to get. You might have had to do it on the slide. People were probably wondering, what the heck are you doing photographing our legs? But photograph or focus on the second pair of legs if possible. Here's a portrait. In a lot of ways, it's very well done. It's a heavily backlit portrait, and you could tell by the frame of the young man's head. That's very well done. I'll give you some portrait tips, and Roosa did fine on this one. Generally speaking, if you're taking a portrait, if you want, well, where should I start? Let's start here. You want to get either the whole body in. That means from the toes all the way above the head. So you want a little space above the head and a little space like beyond the toes. All right. If you can't do that, or you don't want to do that, then below the knees, like around the shins. So you want below the knees and the ankles, in between there. You somewhere in there, and that's what she did in this shot, and that's fine. And the reason too, now you got the entire arm holding the hat in the shot. The next place where is the kind of an acceptable place is all the way now just above the waist. Now I skipped. You really never want to get a shot of anyone right here, like cropping it between the knees and the waist. It's usually a no-no. All right. Now this isn't like a hard fast rule. All right. But generally speaking, if you're posing a model, try not. You don't want to get a shot right here. You want it either just below the knees or just above the waist. Now in this case, just above the waist would have been okay, but you wouldn't have got the hand and the hat in the shot, and I think that's kind of an important part of the shot. And he's striking a pose, his hands in his pocket, and his jacket is back a little bit, and it looks nice. So that's the second part. So we have either the whole body, space above the head, space below the toes, between the knees and the ankles like this, just above the waist, okay, just below the shoulders is the next spot, and you leave space on all of these just above the head. On every shot I've just told you so far, just above the head. So just below the shoulders and just over the top of the head. The next spot would be either, it doesn't matter, it could be just under the chin or just over the chin and just down from the head, so cutting off part of the head. Alright, so something like that. Then of course you could crop in tighter if you want. You get just the eyes, which is common, common shot. So try to remember those kind of generalized posing, framing, composition rules. I don't want to even call them rules, suggestions. All right, and I think you'd make a strong portrait. Now in this case, as I mentioned, Roosa did. It's between the knees and the ankles. Everything's fine there. The gentleman's face is a little dark because of the strong backlighting. You could try to brighten it up just a touch with a brush. You need something like this. You could just try to add a little brightness to his face. And let's just bring it down just a touch. Something like that, okay? So that, let me show you the before and after. That's before and that's after. Now I'm a little sloppy. I spilled over here. I'm not going to go too crazy over this right now, but you get the idea. All right, something like that. The other thing is, I would suggest, is now he's far away. His eyes are very dark. You generally want the eyes a little brighter. So you could get a brush again. You could do it in Lightroom. All right. And now I got to make it really, really small. Okay. And I would just put a dot there and a dot there, and I would bring it up a touch like that maybe. So you got kind of little spotlights in the eyes now. And then I would even add a third new one, and I would make my brush a little bigger this time. This one's going to be harder to do. Let me see if I could do it real fast. I just want to brighten up the entire area of the eye a little bit. Okay, so let's close that down. Let's zoom back out, and let me open up that brush control again, and let me show you. This is what I did to it. Now that's the before, and that's the after. Now you can see I spilled over in a couple spots and stuff, and I didn't really mess with the exposure that much. You really have to dial it in perfectly, and I just did a real generalized setting. But you might want to brighten up his face a little bit, brighten up his eyes a little bit, and try to add some artificial catch lights in his eyes. It helps him look more alive. Now the final thing is he's a little soft. It was f/1.8, so you have super shallow depth of field. I mean, this is the 50mm lens. This lens is wide open. So the reason why you shoot wide open is you want to blur the background out. Now that's fine, but you really got to be careful with the focus, and you want his eyes in focus, and you can see they're blurry. As a matter of fact, the whole front of his face is kind of blurry. So you got to be very careful and focus on the gentleman's eyes and make sure they're in really tight focus. And you really got to hold still, because even if you move forward with your head 2-3 inches, you're going to throw the focus off. Yeah, you might want to use a tripod. You might want to go to f/2.8. Maybe it'll still blur the background out probably adequately and give you just a little more depth of field where you have a little room for error. So that's something to suggest on that. This is kind of an interesting shot too. Now the focus looks like it's behind the eye a little bit, and I mentioned numerous times, always try to focus right on the eye. Alright, this is a hard shot to do. This is at f/2.2, very shallow depth of field. As you can see, the background's nicely blurred. Generally speaking, you like to do these shots like this, where the animal is looking straight at you, with an animal that has a flatter face, like a monkey. Cats, if they have their head tilted forward and their nose down, they're a very good shot for a cat like this, and you could get the eyes in perfect focus. Anything with a flatter face, so anything with a beak or a nose, like a lizard or in this case a chicken, it's a tough shot to pull off. And you always have this, you always have something blurry in the foreground, and so that's my suggestion. In this case, you might wanted to try to side view of this chicken, or try to crop way in, way in with a different lens than a 50mm, probably like a 200mm, and shoot at f/16, cropped way in, and then the background wouldn't have mattered, and you would have got the entire head in better focus. This is a nice shot. I like this, and the focus is very good. In this case, it looks like the focus is more in here, which is okay. That's fine. Generally, you kind of want these. I think they're called stamen, if I remember my biology, which I took like 30-something years ago. You want these in perfect focus, and it's fine though. Again, it's f/2.2, so we quickly lose depth of field. You can see even these front petals are out of focus, whereas the focus is good here, and these back petals are out of focus. So super shallow depth of field. 1/4000th of a second, f/2.2. So very, very fast shutter speed. So I mean, even though it's a fast shutter speed, you might want to consider using a tripod, because as I mentioned, you just move an inch closer, and your focus is now back here. You move an inch back with your head, you just sway a little bit, and the focus is over here. So it's very hard to hold that perfect focus hand holding it. So that's why you would want to use a tripod. And often we put our camera in live view mode, because we could zoom in live view mode and look at the screen and zoom in right into here and get that focus perfect right there. You know, put it on manual focus and manually dial it in so it's perfectly in focus right there. But the composition is nice. We have a little bit over here, you know, bleeding in, but that's fine, not a big deal. And it's got kind of a natural line between these two flowers, going diagonal line going that way. So it's very nicely done. This is my favorite photo that Roosa took, and I just love the processing, and I love the mirror image. Very nice shot. I just think it's very nice, very delicate, and I like everything about it. What I would do if it were mine, I would try. I know I wing these things. I don't try anything ahead of time. So you know, I don't experiment or anything, and I just speak extemporaneously. I speak off the top of my head. And here, let's go back. We want to turn. Where am I? Let's get rid of this for a minute. I want to unlock that. Okay. What I might want to see is what kind of shot would it look like if we eliminated some of that negative space. Just a little bit. Come in just a little bit over here. That's interesting too. So that's just an alternative. I'm not saying that's better or worse or anything like that. I'm just saying that that's kind of a neat shot too. So something to think about when you compose a shot or when you're going to crop it in post processing. Something to try. But this is a pretty cool shot either way. So I'd like to thank oh no, we got another one, sorry. This here, now the sky's interesting, although it's kind of subdued in the processing. It's pretty much just a snapshot of this boat. We have this one kind of half in the shot and it's really not there. Really, on something like this, you don't want like a part of a boat in there, part of the flag over here. It's not a real strong subject, so it's not really holding our attention. This is something is going to be tough to get because these boats are so close together. So it's something, you know, you work the scene. I'm not sure you could even find a good shot really in this shot. The sky's nice. If you could find a different boat somewhere and you could use the sky to your advantage, that would be my suggestion. But other than that, it's really a tough shot because this really isn't a strong image right here, a strong subject to photograph. Now I think that's it. Yes, it is. So now I would really like to thank Roosa for sending in some of her photos. I really enjoyed critiquing them. I hope that what I said helps Roosa and everyone else with anything. And remember that the composition rules, you know, I said rules again. Composition suggestions. If you're photographing a person in a kind of a portrait, an environmental portrait particularly, I shouldn't say environmental either, but a portrait where they're outside. So just, you know, get the whole body in, so just below the feet, just above the head. The next step up would be between the knee and the shins and just above the head. The next step up would be just above the waist and just above the head. And the next step up would be just below the shoulders and just above the head. Then the next step up would be either just below or just under the chin and just down on the head a little bit. So you're cutting off a little bit of the top of the head. And you could just keep cropping in tighter if you want from there. So that's the main thing I wanted to talk about today on those composition suggestions for photographing people. And that's it. I again appreciate everyone watching. I appreciate everyone who has subscribed to my YouTube channel. It's been pretty cool. I've been getting a lot of subscribers. And if you haven't done so, I'd really appreciate it if you did. Thanks.